Hi, my name is Luulu and I am into a lot of different fandoms. I like anime, I like reading sci-fi fantasy, I like all kinds of nerdy stuff, and more than that, I like to talk about it. I also like to craft. So for the next little while, sit back, hang out, and craft along with me while I go over whatever it is that I'm currently into. Hello everyone, and welcome to another week of Craft and Chat. It looks like we are finally in the home stretch. Now here's the question. Will I finish the cowl today? Stay tuned to the end of the episode and you will find out one way or the other. Now, this is a cowl created by Inked Empress Fiber Arts. The yarn is in the Stoker colorway of Footsie Fingering Weight, dyed by Voolenvine Yarns. And like I said, we're in the home stretch. So let's get started with the actual topic of the week, jumping right into this. Today's topic is Cinderella sexist? Well, let's discuss. First, we need to figure out how to gauge this, and there are a few tests that have been more or less universally accepted in how to find that out. That is the Bechdel test, which I may be mispronouncing, and it is, are there two women in this story? And if there are there two women who talk to each other about anything but a man? The next test is the Makamori test, and this one says, is there a female narrative that is not supporting a man? And then there is also the sexy lamp test. If you replace the female character with a sexy lamp, does anything change? And then last, and honestly what I think might be the most important, is the Sphinx test. How proactive or reactive are these female characters? I will be using these tests in my analyzation specifically of the Disney movie Cinderella, the animated Disney version. Cinderella is the oldest known fairy tale. There are hundreds, if not thousands, of reiterations. There is a Cinderella story in almost every single culture, and talking about that could be an episode all on its own. But for today, we're only looking at the Disney movie specifically. The Disney movie Cinderella is about a young girl who first loses her mother, and then when she's a little older, by the image in the beginning of the movie, I would guess about 12, her father remarries, and then he passes away, leaving her in the care of her stepmother and her stepsisters. Almost as soon as her father passes away, the stepmother sort of turns on Cinderella, forcing her into more of a situation of servitude than ever treating her as a daughter. She does chores around the house when the other sisters do not. She is degraded, she is spoken down to throughout the movie, and then she realizes there is a ball that is happening. She goes to the ball, meets this guy that she just falls in love with instantly, and then goes back home. Turns out that guy was the prince. He wants to find her, right? Because she had a fairy godmother that helped her, put on the dress and the shoes, and nobody recognized her, nobody knew who she was, except for a shoe that she left behind when leaving the ball. So every maiden in the kingdom needs to try on this shoe, and in the end, the shoe ends up fitting Cinderella, and she finally leaves her household of abuse and tyranny. And can it be tyranny? Can a woman be tyrannical? Is there a female version of tyrant? It's probably just tyrant. Anyway, she gets out of that situation, marries the prince. Cue your happily ever after-esque situation. Well, first off, this movie is primarily dominated by female characters. You have Cinderella, her stepmother, two stepsisters, a fairy godmother, many of the mice, and many of the birds that are her animal companions are also female. So yes, there are plenty of conversations throughout this movie that have nothing to do with a man. In fact, I don't even think anybody mentions a male figure really until you find out about the ball. And then it starts to becoming about, oh, we've got to marry the prince, we've got to marry the prince. But it seems to be more of a social status thing than anything else. And even then, the conversations regarding the ball have more to do with themselves, putting on pretty dresses, getting makeup. Like, it really seems more about outward beauty, but just for themselves, than it is for a guy. I mean, obviously they want to meet the prince and marry the prince, but I don't know. Anyway, I'm going on a tangent. So yes, it passes the Bechdel test. Cinderella wakes up, she has this dream. What the dream is about, she never says, only that it is a wish your heart makes. Talks to her little mice and her birds, and then goes upstairs, has a conversation with her stepmother about chores, and just, goes on about her day. Now, the Makomori test. Female character narrative not supporting a man. I would argue that the prince in this film has almost nothing to do with the plot. This is all about Cinderella, her situation, how she is reacting to her situation in life, and how she gets out of that situation. The prince could realistically be anything. He could be, like, if it were in more modern times, ooh, that would be fun. He could actually be completely replaced by a job, an employer. He could be a wagon full of trade, and I keep going back to jobs, but he is a means to an end. He is the escape for Cinderella. So obviously, if Cinderella was turned into a sexy lamp, well, that would be Beauty and the Beast. It wouldn't be Cinderella. The Sphinx test, how proactive and reactive are they? One of the biggest complaints I see about Cinderella all the time is, well, she just listens to her family and she doesn't really do anything. Well, guys, I'm here to disagree. Cinderella is based somewhere roughly around the 1800s. Nothing gets passed down really through the female line. If Cinderella had been a boy, this entire story would never have happened. But since she was a girl when her father passed away, the estates and everything went to his wife. I'm assuming there was a will involved, and I'm assuming it happened because he was under the impression, the father, that Cinderella would be well taken care of. But so everything Cinderella owned ended up in the hands of this stepmother, and obviously the stepmother passed down a lot of Cinderella's riches to her stepsisters. But Cinderella doesn't just meekly lay down and take this. She is so sassy, you guys. Like, the bells are ringing and she just, I'm coming, hold your horses. Like, she has a very strong backbone. She gets up, remember that conversation I mentioned? She just kind of stands there, looking at them. She does the chores because she has to, but she doesn't just take it, she doesn't just meekly, yes, ma'am, let me go do this. She makes jokes at their expense. She talks back to them. When the letter arrives with the invitation to the ball, she instantly goes, oh, every maiden in the kingdom is allowed? Well, that means I can go too. She doesn't say, can I go too? Please let me go too. She says, I can go too. This is obviously contingent on the stepmother. I don't really think the stepmother's permission has anything to do with this. The stepmother could have said no. Cinderella still would have gone. What is preventing Cinderella from going, the reason she needs her stepmother's permission is, again, Cinderella doesn't own anything, but she needs her stepmother to give her access to get to the kingdom and back. They need carriages for this. When she's not going around talking back to her stepsisters and her stepmother and not informing them of what these letters are talking about, she's running the whole dang household, guys. She has this almost army of mice and birds, and they're all listening to her every beck and call. She is strict but kind with them. She seems to take the position most times more of a mixture between a head maid and a lady's maid. So for anyone who is curious and might not know, I'm going to give a little information. And if you know more than I do and need to correct me, please do. But there was a hierarchy in the servants' quarters, right? You had the lady's maid, who was in charge of making sure the clothes got washed of whoever lady she was assigned to, and she was in charge of dressing the lady, making sure the lady was clean, ready, prepared. And then there was the head maid, who kind of just, well, not just, but kind of bossed everybody around. The places she specifically cleaned were places where she was most likely to be seen, because in that time period, servants weren't supposed to be seen. You weren't supposed to know they were there. And if you look at where Cinderella cleans, she brings breakfast, which I believe is a head maid's job. She is seen cleaning the floors, yes, but she is cleaning the floors in the main entrance hall, which provides her with the ability to open the door and receive a letter from the footman there that presents it to her. That's kind of a big deal. That means she is, in a way, the face of the household. Now, there were some households who only had one maid who was in charge of doing absolutely everything, and I would argue that that is the position Cinderella is in, if it weren't for the mice and birds. They really act a lot like, almost like the servants underneath the head maid, which is also a really proactive thing for her to do. She doesn't actually do a whole lot of cleaning until the stepmother is like, hey, here's this really long list that you need to do. And then she gets, the mice and birds help her with her dress. She's very gracious about that. And she comes running down the stairs, I'm ready, let's go. And it's only when her dress is completely destroyed that she loses a little bit of faith in herself, and she's crying, and her fairy godmother shows up, and she bounces back. She just wants to go to a ball and have fun and dance. And she gets there and she woos the prince. And again, even in the song, this is love, where she's falling in love with the prince. It's really not about him. It is all about her and how she's having a good time. She runs away, loses her shoe, lands back into the household, and then she gets locked in her bedroom when they find out that people are looking for the prince, right? But she doesn't just sit there. She realizes the mice are trying to help her. She instructs them to go and get Bruno, go get the dog, because the dog can chase the cat, so you can get the key to me. She's still, telling them what to do to help her, unlocks the door, races down the stairs, and is like, hey, yo, I'm here. Here I am. I exist. And even then, when one of the shoes break, she's just like, yeah, that's cool. I have the other slipper. Like, from start to finish, she is very confident in who she is as a person. And yes, I know, but she marries a prince at the end. I get it. However, by marrying the prince, she is actually increasing her social status. She is allowing her, like, if she were to just pack up her one article of clothing, leave the main house, her best bet would be to find another mansion or lady's house and become not a head servant there. So her lot in life would probably go down, where she could be treated even worse, where if she talks back, she could be fired, so leaving isn't really the easiest option for her until this prince comes along. And now her quality of life is improving, her social status is improving. She is now a above her stepmother in any way, shape, or form. So if she has any nostalgic or sentimental value left in that house, she can take it back now. She can kick them out on the streets if she wants to. I don't think she really cares that much, but she could. So looking, and it's not just Cinderella, you know? Like the stepmother, competent, commanding, cunning, persevering. Stepsisters, they're kind of bumbling and catty and insulting, but they're still very commanding. The fairy godmother, kind, magical, motherly, absent-minded. Even in the mice, Mary the mouse is the female mouse, and she goes around telling everyone what to do, and it's not seen as bitchy or naggy. She's just like, hey, we need to get this dress done. This is how we get this dress done. And the other mice just do it. They accept her command and her charge. But now let's look at the guys, okay? There's the king, who shows up in 2 scenes. He is romance obsessed. Every time he is on scene, he is talking about how he needs his son to get married, and he wants grandkids. That is his thing. He's also short-tempered and violent. Then there's the Grand Duke, who is anxious to please. He's nervous. He's kind of pompous, but he doesn't really say or do anything that doesn't promote the plot along. Most of his conversations have to do with Cinderella. Jacques and Gus, they're chatty and brash and foolish and cowardly and clumsy and gluttonous, and they help sort of, but they do a poor job of it most of the time. Lucifer the cat, hateful, spoiled, lazy. These are all negative traits that are attached to all of these men. And then there is Prince Charming. And as I've stated before, this dude is a means to an end. He exists only to wrap up Cinderella's storyline. He's a MacGuffin. He could be a sexy lamp, or like I said earlier, he could be a place of employment, anything. He could be pretty much anything or anyone that allows, like, he could be an aunt coming to check on Cinderella after her father's death. Maybe it just took her a while to get there. Like, as long as Cinderella gets out of her situation, his position is fulfilled. So really, you know, guys, maybe Cinderella is sexist towards men, but I've always seen this movie as a story of female empowerment. Like, every single female character has some form of confidence, power, command, except maybe Anastasia, but I could probably make an argument for her too. But yeah, so that is kind of my story for the week. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? Do you think I am way off my rocker? Did I say something that maybe changed your mind about Cinderella? Did I make a few good points, but you are very firmly in your beliefs of Cinderella being sexist towards females? Let me know. Shoot me a comment. Start this discussion. I love to have these discussions about Disney movies because I feel like I could argue that almost every single Disney princess movie has more to do with having a feminist message than it does sexism. And the 2 most commonly talked about ones are Cinderella and The Little Mermaid, so that I wanted to start with Cinderella. And with that, I believe we are out of time. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I hope you had a wonderful time and that you have a wonderful week. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye.